the gang war that ripped through America's prisons. A gray fog crawled over the razor wire of Holman Correctional in Alabama as the night shift prepared to clock out. The prison yard was quiet, too quiet for a facility known for tension that hovered day and night like a low hum in the air. Warden Hale walked the perimeter with his coffee in hand, the sun barely rising behind the towers. Something gnawed at him, a feeling commanders learn to trust. Inside Dorm C, an officer radioed in a disturbance. Nothing major. Raised voices. A few inmates pacing. Normal for early morning. But as Hale approached the security station, the officer monitoring cameras stood up abruptly. "Sir, you need to see this." On the screens, 3 different dorms, C, D, and E, showed inmates shifting in synchronized waves. No shouting. No running. Just purposeful movement. Groups forming. Lines tightening. Hale leaned in. He'd seen tension, unrest, scuffles. This wasn't that. "Lock down those dorms," he ordered. Before the officer could respond, the power to the camera bank flickered. Inmates across multiple blocks stood still at once. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Then a sound cut through the prison like a blade. A loud metal crash from Dorm C, followed by emergency lights, shouting officers, and the thud of boots rushing toward the disturbance. Hale ran. When he entered the dorm, the scene hit him like a shockwave, not violent, not chaotic, but chillingly strategic. Inmates had moved bunks, stacked tables, blocked visibility to certain corners. Every action was coordinated. Every person seemed to know their role. And in the middle of the room lay a single object. A smuggled cell phone, still vibrating, an encrypted message flashing on the screen. H1 complete. Await signal for H2. Hale froze. "H1, he whispered. Phase 1. Before he could process it, another officer rushed in. "Warden, Holman isn't the only one reporting activity. St. Clair just went into full lockdown. Multiple dorms moving at once." Hale stared at him. 2 prisons. Same morning. Same coordination. "Get Montgomery on the line," Hale said. "Now." By noon, the situation had spread beyond Alabama. Reports were coming in from Mississippi, Georgia, and Texas. Each facility experiencing the same phenomenon. Simultaneous coordinated inmate movements. Contraband communication. Dorms shifting like chess pieces no one could control. Not a riot. Not a random disturbance. A communication wave. And it all pointed to the same suspicion law enforcement had whispered about for years. Prison gangs, separated by walls, states, and rivalries, had found a way to connect. But Hale needed evidence. Inside Holman's confiscation room, investigators analyzed the phone found in Dorm C. Forensic techs traced encrypted messages back to devices inside multiple different prisons, some discovered months ago, others still unaccounted for. The messages were short, structured, coded. H1 complete. Status green. Move D3 at release. Signal waits at dawn. Hale paced back and forth. This isn't random. Someone is coordinating this. Across state lines. The tech nodded. And sir, it gets stranger. Look at this. He pulled up a list of numbers. Each had been pinging the same encrypted hub. And each number was registered to contraband phones found in rival gang areas, groups that were historically hostile. But now, their communication was unified. One of the officers whispered, "Who could orchestrate something like this?" Hale didn't have an answer. Not yet. That night, Hale gathered his leadership team. This is spreading. Every hour, another prison reports dorm formations. Coordinated disruptions. Rumors. Messages. If this escalates... He didn't finish. They all knew. This wasn't an internal grievance. This was infrastructure. "Sir," Ramirez, Holman's investigations captain, said quietly, "We pulled logs from last week. Something might have triggered this." He slid a file across the table. Inside were reports of a dispute inside Holman's segregation unit. 3 inmates from 3 different factions passing folded notes through ventilation grates. Notes written in coded symbols investigators hadn't been able to translate. Hale frowned. What started the dispute? Ramirez hesitated. A missing package. What package? Ramirez swallowed. A large one. Movement of contraband that never made it to where it was supposed to go. Hale closed the file. Contraband. Money. Interruption in supply. Prison gangs didn't start wars over personal grudges. They started wars over economics. Get me the details on that package, Hale said. Where it originated. Where it was headed. Who was expecting it? Ramirez nodded. There's something else, sir. He placed a sealed bag on the table. Inside was a slip of paper found under one of the bunks during the Dorm C disturbance. A symbol, not words. Not numbers. Not gang markings. A single downward arrow with a circle around it. Below it, scribbled in small, hurried handwriting. When the arrow falls, the second wave begins. Hale felt the air leave his lungs. Second wave? Ramirez nodded grimly. Warden, Holman was only the beginning. Hale stared at the symbol, the coded notes, the synchronized movements across states. Something bigger was moving. Something organized. Something calculated. He clenched his jaw. Find the origin of that symbol. Check every prison that's reported disturbances. Ramirez looked at him nervously. We already did. And? Ramirez exhaled. That symbol appeared in 4 other states. A heavy silence filled the room. Hale whispered the only truth he could grasp. This isn't a riot. This is a message. And when investigators opened the locked storage unit, the symbol pointed toward. What they found changed everything. The metal lock on storage unit B17 was coated in years of dust, untouched long enough for the tag to fade into a pale, unreadable smear. Warden Hale stood in front of it with Ramirez and 2 investigators from the Department of Corrections Intelligence Division. The hallway buzzed with fluorescent lights overhead, but nothing felt normal about this place, not today. Hale handed Ramirez the bolt cutters. Open it. Ramirez snapped the lock. The metal door slid upward with a slow metallic groan. Inside, unlike the others filled with mops and old equipment, B17 was immaculate, swept clean, everything placed with alarming precision. 3 items sat on a table in the center of the room. A sealed box labeled H2H. A map of the southeastern United States. A tablet, powered off but clearly not standard prison-issued equipment. Ramirez whispered, Sir, this isn't from us. Hale stepped forward slowly, the cold air prickling his skin. He opened the box. Inside were dozens of slips of paper, each with the same symbol. A downward arrow surrounded by a circle. The same mark found under the bunk. The same mark appearing in 4 other states. These are messages, Hale said. Not random. Instructions. He lifted the map. 5 prisons were circled. Holman, St. Clair, Smithfield, Wilcox, and 1 more, Red River Correctional Facility, across the state line. The lines between them formed a pattern, almost like a chain route. It's a communication corridor, Hale said. Someone's linking specific facilities. Ramirez nodded. Sir, contraband moves along routes. But I've never seen anything this organized. Hale placed the map down. This isn't just smuggling. This is structured coordination. One of the intelligence agents opened the tablet. Encrypted, he said. I'll need time. But before he could disconnect it, the screen flickered. A countdown appeared. 011. 010. 009. Back up. Hale snapped. The agent set it down, expecting an explosion or wipe. But when the timer hit 0, the device powered on. A list appeared. A list of inmate ID numbers. Hale felt his stomach clamp. Where are these inmates now? The agent typed rapidly. His voice cracked. Sir, every one of these inmates is currently in a segregation unit across 5 states. Segregation. Hale repeated. Why there? The agent swallowed. Because they can't communicate with anyone. They can't meet. They can't move. Hale closed his eyes. Someone was preventing specific inmates from contacting others. Someone powerful. Someone who understood the system deeply enough to manipulate it. He turned to Ramirez. We need those names cross-referenced with every incident in the last 18 months. Ramirez nodded and sprinted out. Hale stared at the list. The IDs were random. Different ages, different backgrounds, different convictions. But he knew better than to believe randomness. Whoever was behind this war had targeted them, isolated them, controlled who could speak and who couldn't. Hours later, in the administrative conference room, Ramirez dumped a thick file onto the table. "Sir, we have the cross-reference." Hale braced himself. "They're all connected," Ramirez said. "Every inmate on that list was involved, directly or indirectly, with contraband distribution networks inside their original facilities." Hale flipped the pages. Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, Alabama. Every inmate had been quietly moved at least once in the past 2 years. Not through standard transfer chains. Through emergency moves. Administrative overrides. Hastily processed paperwork. "Someone moved them," Hale said. "Someone with access." Ramirez nodded grimly. "And someone moved them alone, Warden. They were never transferred in groups." Hale stared at the transfer logs. Inmate after inmate shuffled in the dead of night. Quite purposeful. Almost invisible. One entry stood out. "Transfer approved by Regional Coordination Officer." But the signature was blacked out. "Who signed this?" Hale demanded. Ramirez flipped to the next page. "That's just it. None of these signatures match any current official." The room fell silent. Hale leaned back slowly. "This isn't a gang war starting from inside. This is being engineered from outside." One of the intelligence agents cleared his throat. "There's something else, sir." He handed Hale a manila envelope. "Found sealed inside Unit B-17. Hale opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A diagram. A flowchart. Ramirez stepped closer. "What is that?" Hale stared as lines, arrows, and facility names circled the page. "It's a blueprint," he whispered. "A blueprint of how the gang conflict spreads." Every prison circled on the map was a trigger facility. Once movement began in one, pressure built in the next. And the next. Dominoes. Coordinated dominoes across multiple states. Ramirez exhaled sharply. This means someone predicted the war." Hale shook his head. "Not predicted it." He lifted the page. "Designed it." At the bottom, a short phrase was written neatly in small print. "Phase 2 begins when the arrow rises." Hale's eyes went wide. "The arrow rises?" Ramirez turned pale. "Sir Thug." He pointed at the digital board showing statewide incident reports. Prisons that had been silent all morning were flashing yellow. Now orange. Now red. Movement. Strikes. Lockdowns. All at once. Hale whispered, horrified. Phase 2 just started. And when they opened the encrypted file hidden behind the map, what they found made the first wave look small. The command center was lit only by the glow of screens, red alerts blooming across the digital map like spreading embers. Warden Hale stood in the middle of the room, staring in disbelief as one facility after another shifted from yellow to orange. A few were already flashing red. St. Clair, Wilcox, Red River, Smithfield, and now, unexpectedly, Pine Ridge Correctional, a facility that had been quiet for years. "Sir," an intelligence agent said, voice tight, "that's 5 facilities in under 2 hours. This is a coordinated escalation." Hale didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on a symbol now appearing on one of the screens. The downward arrow encircled. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. Ramirez burst through the door. "Warden, we opened the encrypted file hidden under the map." "Show me," Hale said. Ramirez passed him a tablet. On the screen was a list of facilities. Next to each one was a single number, 1, 2, or 3. Hale frowned. "Tiers." "Not tiers," the agent said. "Stages." Hale scrolled further. Stage 1 movement. Stage 2 alignment. Stage 3 pressure. Hale looked up sharply. "Pressure?" Ramirez nodded. Stage 3 is the final phase." "And what triggers it?" Ramirez swallowed. "Something they call the arrow shift." Hale felt a chill crawl across his spine. The symbol wasn't pointing downward anymore. It had begun to tilt. The intelligence team huddled around the main table. They pieced together fragments, contraband logs, intercepted messages, inmate transfers, trying desperately to understand the pattern before it advanced. Okay, the lead analyst said. Stage 1 was synchronized movement inside multiple prisons. Stage 2 is the realignment of inmate factions. Realignment? Hale asked. Sir, look at this. He projected an image. Inmate positions inside each facility had reorganized, quietly, calculatedly. Rival factions weren't clashing, they were creating territorial boundaries, almost like they had pre-assigned zones inside the dorms and yards. Not to fight, but to control. It's almost like they're building an internal map, the analyst said. Who approved these movements? Hale asked. Nobody, Ramirez replied. They were inmate-initiated. Hale shook his head. No, not inmate-initiated. He tapped the screen. Directed. A communication officer approached. Warden, we have a problem. A big one. What now? The movement patterns have reached federal facilities. Hale's heart froze in his chest. The map now showed Florence, Victorville, and Pollock beginning to shift. How? Hale whispered. Federal facilities were fortress-like. Impossible to coordinate between. Impossible to reach. Unless someone had access to communication channels beyond contraband phones, beyond hand signals, beyond letters slipped through vents. Wait until you see what happens when the next one starts. Hit subscribe, because this story is just getting started.